We're visiting the studio of Lynn's friend Naruse-san, who is a Japanese papermaker working in his studio outside Ubud. And in this video we're going to have a look at how his papers are made. This is Naruse, a very gentle man who was very kind and gave us lots of his time and lots of information. The paper we're going to be seeing is made from banana fibre. The girls were sitting in one corner preparing that fibre. They chopped up the trunks and then started chopping the fibre into smaller and smaller strips with a machete. They worked at it like this for the whole 2 hours that we were there. Fairly tiring work. The fibre's stripped into smaller and smaller pieces, narrower and narrower strips, and they just are very good with these knives and machetes. It's then gathered together and cut with a guillotine into little square pieces, so you can see that the fibres are perhaps cut up into a lot smaller pieces than we would cut banana fibre. They're quite short pieces. These are the cooking pots. You can see that they wear wonderful protective gear, protective footwear, gloves, eyewear. Every aspect of safety is covered in this studio. They just carry on. I don't know how many injuries there might have been. The girls seem to do the preparation of the raw fibre and the cooking, and the boys seem to carry on with most of the processes from then on, including the making of the paper. So this is washing the fibre after it's been cooked, and again you can see the protective footwear comes into play. He does have gloves on. These boys are very agile. They climb up and down. Now, this is Naruse showing us that he does have a mortar and pestle. It's a rather large one, and that you can prepare the fibre this way. But I think with the amount that he's using, it would take an incredibly long time to process it with the mortar and pestle. And he's already got a blister. So instead he's processing with these giant blenders. This is a green man provided by Ron and Lynn to Naruse, I think. And this is the one he's actually using, just like a big giant blender. You put some water in, put a few handfuls of pulp and turn it on. I guess it's a bit like using an incinerator. I don't seem to worry too much about how much water they use. I don't know where the water came from, or it would probably not, of course, be drinkable water. It might be the same sort of water they use in the rice fields. This is the pulp coming out the bottom of the blender. It does look to me very much like pulp would look after it's been through an incinerator. They're separating out the long and the short fibres here with these skewers, I guess they are. A little bit thicker than a skewer, but they keep running them through the pulp and just dragging out the longer fibres and leaving the shorter fibres. Very labour-intensive process. And the shorter fibre, they left them with all the shorter fibres in the vat, which they pour out and keep to make very fine paper, perhaps for printing or painting on. And they're going to make the paper today from the longer fibres. All of the processes here are extremely labour intensive, and Naruse is lucky that he's got a very cheap source of labour, and there were probably about half a dozen people working in his workshop there the day that we were there. You can see how long that vat of fine pulp is taking to drain. And Naruse is showing us that there's a whole big bin full of very fine pulp. So the pulp is laid out by hand, just handfuls are put into the vat and then picked at just by hand, separated out from one end of the vat to the other. It's an enormous vat and it's an incredibly labour intensive process. They were already doing this when we came, and I think about 1.5 to 2 hours later they took the piece of paper out. The bamboo pole is moved along in the vat so that they can get at the paper in the middle as they're moving along. Sometimes 2 or 3 are sitting on that bamboo pole, very, very agile. Okay, they're about to lift up this sheet of paper. You can see how incredibly even it is. So after a few hours of them standing on that bamboo pole and just laying out the pulp by hand, this is the end result. And it's an exciting time for everyone. Just have a look at how that vat is made. It's just some planks and plastic. So they're going to take the screen outside and they stand it up on props and it just dries in the sun. That's another one of much coarser fibres drying, and this is the drying shed and the storage shed, I guess, as well. And then the boys clean up. You can see how there's a dip in that floor, and you can see where that vat was, just made with black plastic and some lengths of timber.